Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Earthdawn Survival Guide, a podcast for all disciplines, paths, players, and game masters, and enthusiasts like Josh and myself. I am Dan.
I am Josh.
And today we are here to talk about all things ecumenical and theological, because we're going to do part 3 of our 6-part series on passions and questors. So if you have any questions for us, we did some email last time around, please feel free to email us at edsgpodcast@gmail.com. And today we're going to cover Floranuus and Upandal.
Yes.
So we'll get to Floranuus first, only because it's alphabetical, I guess. And we'll kind of start from there. And since last time around we covered this in about an hour, a little more than that, we're going to dive right in. So no preamble anymore. Floranuus is the passion of perpetual optimism. I found that wonderful to have there as well, because they can immediately turn depression into exhilaration, but really their ideals are revelry, energy, motion, and victory.
Yes.
So how do you explain all of those, or how do you kind of work those in as an overall theme? Because revelry is just, being boisterous, I think, a little
celebration,
rambunctious.
The energy of life itself,
mm-hmm.
the sheer joy that can go along with movement, the idea of the runner's high, the feeling that you get when you are, say, taking your sailboat in a good breeze, mm-hmm. and just clipping along the water.
Yeah.
All of those kind of celebration and feeling that you get in that kind of pursuit, a race, any kind of motion and
physical endeavor. I equate this to
physical endeavor in a certain respect, more of the, not necessarily exertion itself, because that's kind of more of a Thistonius thing, and we'll talk about that in another episode.
Yes.
But the thrill of, to grab modern stuff, parasailing or anything where you, or, mountain biking, skiing, anything where you are out and moving through the world, and the kind of exhilaration and feeling of being alive.
I was just going to say, that was my phrase, is whatever lets you know that you feel finally alive. Mm-hmm. Instead of just you're going about your day-to-day doldrums, or you walk to the store, or you walk down the street. That's not really it. This is the motion of slight exhilaration, and you actually feel like, oh, I am living. My heart is beating. The blood is pumping. I'm here, and I'm here now. I put it that way.
Yeah. The feeling that you would get for perhaps a hunter pursuing a prey, and not in the kind of sneaking through the underbrush and quietly creeping up. It's the cheetah running down the gazelle. It's that burst of energy, that speed, that final bit of pursuit, and how that is kind of an epitome of life. There's a strong association with Floranuus with the element of fire as being the element of
the burning drive inside you.
Yeah, the burning drive. There's not really a sense with the passions of being associated with astronomical stuff the way that you would, say, have a sun god. But Floranuus would share some of the ideas of Apollo driving his chariot across the sky, or the very similar kinds of ideas of other sun gods, sun deities, who are basically that motion of the sun being the source of life, and taking that motion and that movement across the sky. You can take some of those kind of aspects of things as well.
Yes. So, and just, the fire inside is what I kind of go with, because it's always like a Bob Seger song. So I had to go along with that as well. Sorry, music note there. Anyway, but the other elements of Floranuus are parties, cheers to certain people, so you acknowledge that they're alive and what they accomplished. Wine, and I don't mean cheer wine, which is my favorite soft drinks, but just wine as well, the beverage, and swiftly moving ships, airships, sailing ships, whatever. So it's that motion of, again, you feel the breeze on your skin and in your hair, and it moves you, so that that type of motion of getting somewhere quickly. So it's that whole exhilaration is the best word I can come up with that you mentioned earlier. So
yeah,
the powers that Floranuus grants are increased stamina, because as you said, the runner is high. So, the adrenaline's finally kicked in and your pain lessens a little bit because adrenaline is really good stuff. But that Floranuus can turn depression into exhilaration in a thought. So that's the questers and people who are followers of Floranuus are just up people. They're the ones who are the life of the party. They are just the ebullient, come on, let's go do this. And kind of an improvisational person just to go, I don't want to make plans. Just get up and go do it. And that's kind of the nature of Floranuus and their followers.
Yeah. There's a little bit because of the relation to partying and celebration and wine, take a little bit from Dionysus. Again, keep going back to the well of the sort of Greco-Roman beliefs, that association there and that idea you could take a little bit of ideas from. But yeah, just the antithesis of depression and sadness and dolor.
Lethargy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very upbeat, very positive. Not necessarily great long-term planners. Maybe have a little bit of the idea of, just get moving, get it going, get it in action, rather than taking the time. I mean, they probably plan and throw great parties.
Yeah.
But, there's not.
Yeah, getting a task done or a menial task done, and maybe not be their thing. Because, party, revelry, living in the moment. Great ad-libbers and improvers.
But you could even take the Mary Poppins snap the job's a game kind of thing, where if you bring that attitude to the task that you need to do, the menial tasks, while there's not the keeping household aspect of things that would go with that, there are like the farmer who is tilling his fields. While there is some strong tie with Jasperi there's also the forward motion and the effort and the work that goes into that and the progress. And again, like if you are doing something that gets your blood flowing and gets that kind of adrenaline pumping and that feeling of positive work, the idea of when you're done, you might be a little bit tired or sore, but you feel good about it. That's something where Floranuus might have made themselves known.
Yes.
And so while most typically you get associations with airships and riverboats and the wanderlust that kind of typifies tales of sailors and whatnot, call me Ishmael.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
One of the things that goes on in the early part of Moby Dick is how Ishmael is like, every so often I get this urge to just go to sea. Yes. There's this idea that you just kind of get on and you kind of let the wind and the currents take you where they do, and you have an adventure.
Gotta go, man. Gotta go. No, my favorite part from the essay of Floranuus is the tie into other to other passions, where they say Astandor may have blessed a song with harmony and a painting with beauty, but it is thanks to Floranuus that it leaves a smile in your face. Thestonius may give a warrior the strength to defeat a mighty foe, but it is Floranuus who gives the victory a sweet taste. And while Upandal will give your house sturdy walls, Floranuus gives you felicity as you call it your home. So Floranuus ties into a lot of other things because there is that motion and that energy to get things started and or get things done. So how about we talk about the Questors? So actually, tell you what, how about we do this instead? Between this and the Questors, because somebody brought up the question to us a while ago, which is, what do followers of Floranuus do as maybe a small devotion? Because they're not devoted enough to be a Questor, what can they do? And or how do we work Floranuus into a campaign to introduce this passion to the players?
I'm thinking if you're going to be dealing with, as you do in a lot of cases with passions and so forth, you're going to be interacting with people. And a wedding celebration of some sort seems to me a great situation, because you could get Astandar in there. You can get Garland in there in a certain respect.
Totally.
But you would get Floranuus in there. And again, if you
Heavily.
think about the spiritual and religious life of how the passions and what they represent can be related to the important milestones or even the lesser significance of things, a wedding celebration, a feast, even perhaps in a household that is maybe a little bit more dedicated to Floranuus without necessarily being questors. Perhaps when, especially if you have a larger family, when you're all gathered around for a big family dinner, that the communion, the celebration, the oneness, the rowdy. I picture Floranuus being very welcome in a home with a lot of rambunctious kids and energy and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And so that could be something that, again, like Astendar being invoked at the beginning of a performance, that Floranuus would be a being that is called upon when you are going to be having a celebration or perhaps some kind of race or challenge or whatever that epitomizes that idea of life and energy and movement. There are so many ways that they could be brought into events because, as you pointed out in that quote, yes, these other passions are involved in these things, but Floranuus is there as well because they represent the joy and the recognition of simply being alive. That art without the emotion, without that joy tied to it, is not as rich.
The same. Yeah. I am imagining, go back 30 years to, or 25 years to the Three Musketeers movie. And when Athos, Porthos, and Aramis are out wenching, I'm inspired to dance. And he gets up and immediately just starts, dancing along with the music. So the inspiration for that, Astendar might be helping the muse play the tune, but Floranuus is the, I'm inspired to dance. Let's get up and go right now. And that motion and that revelry and that pursuit of energy that goes along with wenching in the movie, something along those lines as well. Because victory is also in one of the ideals.
Yeah, that sort of get up and go. Again, the celebration as a concept and how that can bring a community together and have everyone recognize. I think it might even really be interesting to think about how, especially where we talked about death a little bit in the last episode, where we were talking about Death Sea. It would be really interesting to think about how Floranuus might be invoked or represented in a funeral situation where someone's life has come to an end. The idea of a wake where that's a celebration of what they have done before and they have come to the end of that journey, and that a follower, a devotee of Floranuus would want that life to be representative of forward motion and celebration and joy rather than, oh, woe is us.
For that person is no longer here. No, because that's part of the essay as well, which is if that person who has passed, that internal fire that was them, if that's not passed on to you by you remembering them, then it's not as sweet to remember them at all. So I can't find the quote. I'm not going to worry about it. So let's get on to the questors themselves. As I said, these are the very up people. They're always full of energy. They're always have a smile on their face. They're generally happy because they have that energy and motion to them. A lot of this to me says windling.
Yes. The windlings do tend to be strongly associated with Floranuus because of their motion, their ability to fly, the general upbeat positive attitude, their embracing of life, and their curiosity. Those are all strongly epitomized by the windling. And if there were a patron passion for that name giver race, Floranuus is certainly a very high on the list for that one.
Because otherwise, if there was a discipline closely aligned with questors, would you say it would be the troubadour?
Maybe a little bit.
Possibly.
Troubadours tend to be a little bit more closely associated with Astendar, as we talked about in that episode. Air Sailor, Boatmen, even Sky Raider, although Sky Raiders tend to lean more towards Thistonius. But air sailors and boatmen, probably very strongly associated with Floranuus because of the airships and riverboats, which are symbols of the passion in a way, and have that motion and energy involved in them. So those would probably be the ones that I would think of right off the top of my head as being most strongly associated with that passion.
Fair enough. Okay. So on to the devotions and the powers that, if you decide to become a Questor of Floranuus, what Floranuus can bestow upon you. So we have the follower, the adherent, and the exemplar. So the follower is your first 4 ranks. Your adherent is your next 4 ranks, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then your exemplar are ranks 9 through 12. So your follower devotions for Floranuus, most of these are fairly familiar. Acrobatic defense, avoid blow. This one also gets a durability of 5.
Energy and endurance.
Yes, totally. I also get first impression. Great leap, heartening laugh, you need to have that, yes, especially. Passion's empowerment, we've covered previously. Sprint, wind catcher, and winning smile. So
all of those are upbeat, social, or movement-related talents. There's nothing there that's unfamiliar. They all seem to be either movement-related, acrobatic defense, sprint, avoid blow, kind of defensive ability, but also
wind catcher,
really strongly associated with movement. Great leap.
Oh, yeah.
But then you also get things like heartening laugh and first impression and winning smile playing into the very gregarious, social, outgoing, positive impression making, inspiring others to be upbeat and not depressed attitudes that go along with that.
Yes. So the adherent devotions, we have a couple of new ones, but I'm going to skip over those real quick. So we have gliding stride, again, movement-based, leadership, lion heart. And then here's the fun ones. Encouraging oratory.
Yep. Encouraging oratory is a combat buff. It is similar, if you want to draw parallels, to bardic inspiration from D&D.
Mm-hmm.
The Questor talks, and if successful, provides bonuses to combat for people who are listening to them.
Reminds me of the Ghostbusters. Go get her, Ray.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. Inspired might.
Inspired might provides the targets with bonuses to strength. I think one of the other passions that we talked about gets that as well. It sounds familiar.
It does. I want to say that would go to Jaspri, but I'm not entirely certain.
Was it Ragok? Did Ragok have inspired might because they could use it to have people break down walls and stuff? Okay.
Yes. Ragok had that one. And then we've covered Passion's inspiration, but Stride of Floranuus.
Oh, this is a good one. Yeah. Stride of Floranuus allows the Questor to increase the speed of their targets.
Nice.
They make the test, and for each success, the target's effective speed increases by 20%. It can only be used once per day, but they can, by paying the cost, because it's got a strain cost and requires devotion, they can extend the duration, so they can't retest to get better results, but when the duration runs out, they can pay the cost again to continue the effect for another batch of duration. It can affect not only name givers, but it can also be used to target ships. It's part of the reason why Questors of Floranuus can be desirable for airships or riverboats, because if they have the ability to do that, they can get you to your destination more quickly.
That'd be very nice. And then the last adherent devotion, ranks 5 through 8, telling the tale.
That is a knack, actually, from the companion. I think it's a emotion song knack. I think it allows you to do the same effects as emotion song, but without actually having to sing.
Yeah, because it would be telling instead of singing. So,
yeah, telling the tale, it's a rank 1 emotion song talent.
Fair.
Allows the user to expand the repertoire for emotion song. So yeah, it's basically emotion song, but spoken, not necessarily needed to be sung.
Gotcha. So it's your St. Crispin's Day speech.
Yeah.
So, the exemplar devotions. Most of these look really new to me. So, energy and motion.
So, it provides a substitution for strain that the target of the devotion has to spend a recovery test, but then they get phantom points that they can use to pay strain costs instead of actually paying strain.
Very cool.
But again, going on with the ideas of endurance and energy and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of strenuous activity. The power of the passion allows them to overcome what would normally be a fatiguing effect from an ability.
Or damaging strain. Gift of Life. That reminds me of a Sade song. Everything's musical today. I don't know why.
Yeah, this is one that shows up with Garland as well.
Yes.
The Questor can spend a devotion point as a recovery test for the purposes of powering abilities that require a recovery test.
Ooh, very nice.
And they can do it either for themselves or for a target that would need to spend a recovery test. Like, for example, energy and motion.
Mm-hmm.
They could spend a devotion point as the recovery test to power that effect for themselves or for the target.
Yeah, so this whole little pool of devotion points just works out magnificently.
Garland gets access to that as well because they can use it to pay recovery tests for stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Healing. Yeah. Inspired Endurance. Yeah, I would imagine so.
Ragok gets this one as well. This is the one that allows the targets to overcome fatigue.
Right.
Yep, they can ignore the effects of fatigue.
Yes. And then Invigorate. Not to be confused with Invigilate.
Targets of a successful test gain bonuses to initiative and movement rate until the end of next round.
Very nice.
And as with many Questor devotions, non-adepts get a bigger bonus than adepts do.
Yes. Rally.
Rally, I'm pretty sure, is a talent or knack.
Sounds like a knack, yeah.
It's a talent.
Oh, cool.
Not sure who gets it. Rally, I think, is probably warrior.
Sounds right.
Oh, yeah. On a successful test with Rally, all of those friendly may make an immediate recovery test if available, with a bonus equal to the number of successes on the Rally test. It doesn't provide any bonus recovery tests, but if you pair that with Gift of Life...
Yes.
I think maybe that doesn't interact because it doesn't actually power. Oh, also affected targets ignore harried or knocked down modifiers until the end of the next round.
Yeah, so Rally is awesome that way.
Yeah, I think that's warrior?
Sounds like it should be.
I bet Troubadour probably gets it as well. Yeah, Troubadour gets it at 10th Circle as a discipline talent. It is available as an option for warriors at Warden.
Very nice.
Air Sailors get it too at 12th.
Mm-hmm.
It's an option for cavalrymen at Master Tier. So yeah.
Yeah. Rally's awfully versatile. And then Passion's Comfort, which I think we covered as well.
It's a resist fear ability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes sense for Floranuus. You kind of get that energy and that drive to
overcome things. Yeah. So I think working in Floranuus should be fairly easy. As you said, have the characters or the party come across a celebration of some kind. You know, a new life was born. Somebody had a baby in the village that they came across, or the harvest came in, or it's just, the autumnal equinox and they're throwing a party because of whatever. That's pretty much it. So you can work in Floranuus kind of that way.
Airship and or riverboat travel. You can.
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
Get involved in that as well.
They can just say a quick blessing to Floranuus for swift travel along the river. And if the characters don't know what's going on, easy way to bring up the passion entirely. Have a crew member be either a questor or just a follower of. Yeah, easy way to work them in overall. So on to our other half of the podcast. We're going to talk about Upandal, who is the passion of construction and building and planning. This is the other half. This is where the plan comes from. And they are also, one of their ideals is also order, as in this has to be constructed in a certain way, in a certain order. You can't just reach the end point first and say, oh, well, I need to make a sword. Well, sharpen it first. No, you have to smelt the ore and things like that. So there's an order to do all of these things in construction and building and planning. So the elements that Upandal brings are the hammer, the compass, the blacksmith's forge, and...
To clarify, the compass in the sense of the engineering and scribing tool, which is to say to draw arcs and circles, not a compass as in it's pointing you in a direction which way to go.
Yes, not along a magnetic field. This is the, as you said, circular drawing tool compass, along with a protractor triangle if you were
a draftsman,
an architect of some kind. Yeah, draftsman. So the hammer, the compass, the forge, and building plans. So this is your architect. Yeah, your blueprints.
This is the architect. This is Hephaestus, the smith.
Oh, I love Hephaestus, yes. Vulcan.
You can take inspiration from any number of craftsman deities in mythological.
And in the real world, these are your architects, your engineers, your mechanical engineers, your hydro engineers, your people who plan things, build things, and
construct
in
things.
some respects, repair things. So
we talked about a little bit when we were talking about Astandar, the difference between there's a practicality to, they're both sort of craftsman, creative, making things kind of passions.
Yes.
But there's a practicality and more of a purpose to the creations of Upandal compared to the more airy, philosophical, art for art's sake aspect that you're likely to see from Astandar. But again, like with a lot of the passions, when you start thinking about them, there can always be a little bit of overlap. I think a well-made tool, I think, in fact, there's even an item in the player's guide that's like a magic item, lesser magic item, like the tools of Upandal that are well decorated. They're still practical, good tools, but they are finely made and well decorated with sigils and inlaid bits of precious metal or whatever that have that kind of effect to them.
So what would you put a Rube Goldberg machine under? Is that Upandal?
Oh yeah, that would totally be a Upandal. That would totally be an Upandal thing.
I had to make a small little comic sidebar there because it just occurred to me. I'm like, oh, totally. Because there's a little bit of art form, a little bit of inspiration, and a little bit of motion and revelry. But Upandal is the whole.
Well, there's a lot of planning that needs to go involved
work.
into making one of those things actually work.
Totally. So I need to see an Earth Dawn Rube Goldberg type trap set off one of these years, just as a temple to Upandal. They come across that way. So the powers that Upandal can give somebody is, or that he has, is to make tools quickly, because he's going to hand them off to you more than likely. Fortify structures that are set. So he should come along and fix the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Just saying. But he can also temporarily make bridges and towers as well. So, like I said, all things construction and building and planning. So how could...
Well, I was going to say, we want to kind of extend the metaphor, as we talk about with a lot of these passions, is there's the obvious stuff. But we also, and I think it kind of gets brought up a little bit in the essay in the Questors book. Again, going back to the Questors book, where I was like asking people to, hey, think about different ways that you can approach these things. I mentioned Anthony, who wrote Ragok, or who wrote Carolus. Somebody else wrote Ragok.
Yes.
Also, I think he ended up writing Upandal. I could be mistaken, but the Upandal is an interesting one because it actually involves two Questors of the Passion who have kind of different points of view.
Yes.
It talks about civics, and you're not just necessarily building things, but you are also building communities and planning communities and societies. You know, maybe hitting this a little early, but the most strongly associated with Upandal are dwarves.
Yes.
And Thrall in particular, but dwarves and the planning and the idea of not even just constructing things, but also constructing codes of law.
Yes.
And the complex interactions of how different things can work together in that sense, and looking at it from a social engineering point of view and trying to maybe build a better society.
Well, yeah, because when you plan for people to show up because when you plan the building to go where it's going, you have to have a reason for it to go there. And then when you plan for other buildings to happen around it, then you have to plan for what to do with all those people and how to organize them, and then how to make sure that they're not all deviants and scallywags to break the law. And then you have to organize, then you have to plan exactly how to enforce so you have to do all this planning of these steps. And in the job I've had for many, many years, I have to do those. I have to create policies on exactly how do we allow these people to do these things and nobody can take advantage of it. And how do we implement this policy? And how many people is this scale up to 1,000 people versus 10 people? And yeah, all of that planning is involved in a questor or a devotee of Upandal, because they also, as you said, it's a socioeconomic thing, because in the essay, they are talking about, well, I didn't just build an ale house. This is the center of activity. This is the community gathering spot. This is where the lifeblood of this entire town exists, because this was the first thing here. And now people have a reason to stop here and spend their coin here and engage in other activities here. So this is not just a place to wet your whistle and move on. This is the beating heart of the community. So they argue about that as well. So it's very well done. To your point, all the essays in the Questors book are very well done. So I think it's also, we've gone this is our sixth passion right now. I find it easy as well to work in the concept of Upandal to new players, and running a theme where, like I said, I want to see a temple to Upandal with a Rube Goldberg type trap. I think that would be cool. I don't know how to create it, but I think it would be cool.
Not necessarily a Rube Goldberg trap, but the method by which the doors open.
Yeah, totally.
Just some kind of almost complex engineering for complex engineering's sake.
Yes.
Kind of thing. I think actually in the Travar book, there's some kind of elaborate gate or other that strikes me as a perfect Upandal related thing. It might even actually be connected to Upandal now that I'm thinking about it.
Fair. I also think it's, like I said, it's easy to lace this in for the players just to get an idea.
Because of the importance of Upandal in construction,
every weaponsmith,
many cares would likely have, Upandal would have been more important while it was being constructed. There would also have been importance and devotion to the passion in order to maintain the defenses and protections and structures that allowed people to survive in the care. Garland obviously was very important just as the defender of the hearth and home, but Upandal being the passion that inspires people to actually create these things. And so you would likely have iconography or any number of things that would be calling upon the passion to bless a work or be involved in some kind of project. Any time that there's any kind of construction or building or repair or anything like that would be an opportunity for Upandal to be called upon or to be referenced or to become involved in some kind of activity like that. Because I remember we brought this up before. There's nothing that necessarily prevents the passion from showing up and becoming involved if the activity is suitably devoted.
Yes.
You could have a story of, you talked about the beating heart of the community, the ale house, the community center, whatever that is. Perhaps if it is one, perhaps there could be a tale or a legend in the town of how Upandal was there to help lay the cornerstone, or was there like some kind of thing that happened and Upandal was there. Anytime that you can think of a situation where you might metaphorically say this feeling came upon us, you could actually have the passion manifest in some regard and have that be something that is there.
Yeah.
A lot more sort of involvement.
I equate the real world in Upandal terms because, like I said, mechanical engineers, architects, hydro engineers are all questors of Upandal. But people who just look at something and go, I can fix that instead of replacing it, are the devotees. They're the ones who, I can fix a zipper. or I can fix, the VCR or whatever the case may be. I can fix the table because something broke, or I can fix this. I may not be able to architect the whole house, but I can fix the squeaky door, or I can fix the jammed door, and things like that. So those are devotees of Upandal versus questors.
Not necessarily. You could absolutely have questors that are the perpetual tinkerers and fiddlers. You take images of like the stereotypical tinker gnomes, or mad inventors or scientists whose workshop. I mean, there is a certain degree of order and whatnot that goes along with Upandal and kind of things in its place. But I think there's also the Tiskrang riverboat engine, the fire engine, was inspired by Upandal, by someone going into a fugue state inspired by the passion and creating this miraculous feat of magical engineering.
Yeah.
And so there is absolutely, I think, within the space of Upandal's area of influence to have that pigsty-ish mad scientist who knows where everything is, but somebody looking at it from outside, just like organized chaos kind of idea is absolutely something that could go along with it. You could have some aspects or presentations of followers of Upandal who have kind of a magic punk, steampunky kind of vibe to them in terms of pushing the boundaries, and not just from a strictly mechanical engineering standpoint, but magical engineering as well. Enchantment is something I think that Upandal would probably be involved with, especially with the way that we have enchantment rules worked up in 4th edition with the need for design and a plan and that sort of thing. And so common magic items like the pots of Groomba or the dust brooms and various other things like that that are crafted items would have Upandal involved in them perhaps in some way.
I remember a quote, I had to go look it up actually because I wrote it down, that reminded me of Upandal when I came across it, which is that boredom is the threshold to great deeds. So once you push past the boredom, you can accomplish certain things. That's like you said, the mad tinkerer of Upandal and questors thereof. So how about we get down to the brass tacks of what, let's say somebody wants to follow in the path and walk with Upandal and see what they can come up with. Because these would be your teachers, your engineers, your builders, people who look forward to teaching other people how to build and how to plan and things like that. So the follower, adherent, and exemplar tiers, of course. The follower devotions are pretty self-explanatory, and I think we've come across most of these. So artisan, book memory, craftsman, etiquette, evaluate, jury rig. Is that one new, or is that
is new? It might be based on a knack. Let me check. No, jury rig is a devotion. So one of the things that Upandal questors can do is they have devotions that tend to work more longer term, but also relate to the management and completion of projects.
Oh, this is your project manager.
You get some project management stuff. And it talks about, so jury rig is what's called an overseen project. The questor directs a willing team to repair a damaged structure, and it allows them to more quickly repair something than would normally be required by the physics of actual construction.
Gotcha.
It's not pretty, but it's sturdy and gets the job done.
That'll do. Yeah.
Each target repairs 1 damage point per success each round for rank rounds. The idea being that if you've got a barrier that has suffered damage, you direct a team to repair it, and they repair damage done to that wall or barrier, but they do it really quickly.
Yes. If only duct tape existed in Earth Dawn.
Oh, I'm sure somebody has come up with the equivalent of that. Some questor of Upandal.
Exactly. Passions Empowerment is also a follower devotion.
Standard,
we've covered that one before. Project Management is, I think, the overall arcing talent that they get.
The questor is directing a project, and they make a test. If successful, they gain +2 to tests required for the project to run smoothly and complete on time. Additionally, each success increases the pace of the work. It lasts for up to rank weeks, ending when the project is complete. This is the one that the lead architect, who's a questor, uses in order to get stuff done.
Yeah. They get to play foreman. Research we've covered before, and this is a new one, Upandal's Armory.
Oh, yeah. There's a typo in the book, it looks like. I think the name changed. Based on the rules text, it looked like the name, it was probably originally called Create Weapon. Again, it's an overseen project, so they are directing other people to do this.
Fair.
Basically allows them to quickly create weapons from rudimentary materials and only basic tools.
Yes. So ignore the typo. It's Upandal's Armory. So on to the adherent devotions, ranks 5, 6, 7, and 8. Buttress Armor just sounds awesome.
Well, anytime you can work the word buttress into something, it's a good day.
Exactly.
It allows the questor to direct people to enhance armor. The targets work for a period of time, and each success increases the physical armor of 1 armor per success. It is incompatible with forge armor. This is okay. I don't know if you'll remember this.
Let's
remember
see.
When we talked about the weaponsmith?
Yes.
Or more specifically, when we talked about forge weapon and forge armor, and how there used to be a talent called improve armor.
Yes.
This is where it ended up.
Okay.
I mean, it's modified a little bit, but the idea is that buttress armor, and I'm pretty sure there's an equivalent for weapons in this, where people work on them for a short period of time and gain them bonuses, ended up here under the Questor of Upandal powers, that Upandal's ability allows them to do it the fast way that the old talent used to provide. It's incompatible, so you can't stack the Questor power with the weaponsmith ability, but that's what this is.
That's okay. I think that's coming up here in a minute or so, because the other adherent devotions are Danger Sense, Evidence Analysis, Fortify, which sounds new as well.
Fortify allows the questor to increase the armor and death ratings of barriers. The power that Upandal themselves have to do that, the questor can do that. They make a test and it increases the armor and death rating of the barrier, making it more difficult to.
Yeah, I did skip over detail-oriented, so I apologize about that. That's my fault.
Detail-oriented, if a test that involves a sustained action that specifically benefits from planning and attention to detail fails, they can make a detail-oriented test using the lower of the appropriate steps. The difficulty number is the same. It's like Second Chance, which is a high circle talent, but it only applies to stuff that is a sustained action that would benefit from planning and foresight.
Gotcha. Yeah. Other adherent devotions are Passion's Inspiration, which we've covered before, and Psychometry, which again we've covered before. But Hone Weapon, I think, is the one you were just thinking of.
Yeah, let me just double check. Hone Weapon. Modifies non-magical weapons to make them more dangerous. They work for an hour. Each target increases the damage step of 1 weapon or standard container of ammunition by +1 per success.
Nice. So, yes.
And it lasts until the next sunrise. So, yeah, it's a short term, like, this is the montage of where you combine this with the,
this is the
with the other one, that the create weapon that's the lower tier one.
Mm-hmm.
And you can sort of combine this. They make weapons and make them better.
Yeah. So moving on to the exemplar devotions, ranks 9, 10, and 11, and 12 for your Questors of Upandal. Leadership, we've covered before. Perfect Focus.
Perfect Focus, I think it's a high circle weaponsmith talent. Might a couple of others have it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically it provides bonuses to sustained actions.
Cool. Resist Influence, I think, is just isn't that a knack off of? Like,
that's a talent that's available to troubadours, among some others, maybe Nethermancers as well. Oh no. Resist Influence.
No, never mind. Oh,
I was thinking of
both wrong.
It might be based off of something from an earlier edition that was a talent.
Fair. Nope. You have multiple editions in your head.
Questor speaks words of comfort, encouragement, or inspiration. Makes a test. If successful, the target gains a bonus to mystic and social defense. and any resistance test against mind-affecting abilities until the next sunrise. So, yeah, I was thinking of initially thinking of an old talent or ability that provided a bonus to resist horror stuff of the horrors.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Yep.
But this is
I know where you're
basically
coming from
a defense against any kind of mind-affecting or altering abilities, whether for better or for worse. So it would help resist fear. It would help resist any kind of Questor devotion or power that would affect somebody's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about some of the Ragok abilities that like inspire rage and whatnot in people. It would help resist those.
Totally.
And even if no resistance test is normally allowed, it grants them a resistance test to shake it, or reduces... it's a bulwark against emotional and mental manipulation.
Yes, because right after resist influence is silence influence. How's that for sibilance for you?
That's the dispel devotion ability. Cancel the effects of any ongoing devotion.
Yep.
Or passion-derived ability.
2 more to go. Touching the past.
Touching the past is a knack off of, pretty sure it's item history. We talked about that with...
right, Carolus.
Carolus.
And then Upandal's Palisade.
Upandal's Palisade. Questor builds walls and structures in a rapid manner, similar to the lower tier devotions that allow them to repair them. They can build, makes a test, and generates a pool of points that are used to build structures.
Yeah. Basically, this is who you want to call on when they finally have Upandal's Palisade to help you fill sandbags and shore up in case of a flood.
And it's got an added bonus where if sufficient materials aren't available, the Questor can spend a devotion point to make materials available, or to make meager supplies sufficient. They must sort of still be available. It's kind of a loaves and fishes, but for stone and wood.
I had the exact same thought. So I think it's awesome. I think working in Upandal is, I can't say one of the easiest ones to do, because Floranuus, by the way, is easy as well, but I think working in Upandal into an adventuring campaign is not too difficult to sideline them in and make them kind of an underlying theme, or to just kind of highlight along the way that, dangle the carrot in front of your players to maybe, fine, if you want to follow this, here's some tenets, and here's a couple of people who are, I can't say questers of, but devotees to, and have some conversations about what Upandal can bring to your character.
Obviously very strongly associated with weaponsmiths.
Yeah, little bit.
If you want to talk about a discipline that is affiliated with them. Although elementalists may be a little bit as well, particularly if they are the type that is going to be going into enchanting.
Yes.
Not necessarily a full questor, but would have some honorific practices towards Upandal.
Yeah. Any further thoughts on Floranuus or Upandal tonight? Because I think we kind of, I can't say hit everything, but I think we've...
No, I don't have anything more to add.
Groundwork, especially for...
I'm actually enjoying this series where we talk about the passions and the different ways that they can be brought in, and the different things that they can represent, and all that sort of fun stuff.
Yeah, and just kind of lay the groundwork for your players to either get inspired by or attracted to, maybe adding to their legend, which is, finally becoming a quester of somebody else along the way. So it's nice. I don't have any of my players who actually... I have one who has been the go-to healer, and we'll get to Garland soon enough. Next time we do this. And he's like, yep, I've done enough of... He's been carrying around all of the healing aids. So he's like, yeah, I need to just finally give up the ghost and, quest for Garland instead. But he's, he deals in combat a lot. So he's got a nice little dichotomy of character there.
And hopefully we're providing some inspiration to game masters as well. I know that it can be difficult, perhaps, for some people to approach the spiritual or pseudo-religious aspects of play, particularly those who might have more of a kind of secular upbringing, to try and bring a spiritual life to the game, to deal with the passions in some regards as these kind of lofty, distant, uninvolved, almost mythical beings, because that is frequently how deities and religions are portrayed in most fantasy games, because of the way that religious history and whatnot is in Western culture. And I think coming at that from a different angle, or looking at how you can more directly involve the passions and people's beliefs in the passions, can make for a richer and more interesting setting.
Yeah. And it's just another aspect of Earth Dawn that may not be explored to its fullest in every single pre-published adventure, because I've run most of those, but there's so many facets of Earth Dawn that need to be worked in. This is another wrinkle to it, and I like them all. So it's fun to do. I appreciate Josh making the time. I appreciate all the listeners who have questions for us about anything we're covering. We actually got some good ones last time for some passion involvement as well. So I would love to hear from anybody about their involvement and how they've worked in some of these passions. We've covered 6 so far. We're only halfway through it, really. So until next time, it is time for you to go find the energy to build, Upandal, your legend.
Good night, everybody.